What are some weird, real-life X-Files type mysteries? The Tord mystery. A man shows up at an airport in Tokyo and his passport says that he's from a country called Tord. When asked to point to Tord on a map, he points to Andorra but is confused because he had never heard of Andorra before. The company that he claims to work for has no idea who he is even though he had copious amounts of documentation to prove it. He was held in a hotel room guarded by 2 policemen while the police investigated the case. He disappeared from his room even though there were several stories up with no balcony. The Dyatlov Pass incident. 9 Soviet students disappeared while hiking in the Ural Mountains. That in itself isn't particularly weird, apart from extremely unusual findings when the camp and bodies were finally located. Some of the bodies had signs of extreme trauma or were mutilated in ways that couldn't be explained by the normal hazards associated with the terrain. Most of the students had died of hypothermia, despite being experienced in winter hiking and so presumably knowing better than to leave the tent. There's a bunch of conspiracy theories about what caused them to rip the tent open from the inside. There didn't appear to have been an avalanche, flee in various states of undress, and what could have caused the injuries. They range from the Soviet military using the area as a testing ground for weapons to the hikers having stumbled upon a Yeti. The official investigation found that the hikers had been killed by an unknown, compelling force. Edit. I forgot to mention, as some commenters have pointed out, that the clothes of some of the victims allegedly showed high levels of radioactive contamination. This account of a force field spontaneously appearing in a 3M facility, supposedly generated by static electricity from the films they were working with, but at a strength that would require insane levels of potential difference concentrated to one area for no discernible reason. The death of Gloria Ramirez. Summary: a woman was brought into the ER suffering from late-stage cervical cancer. Her body had an oily sheen to it. Her breath smelled like fruity garlic. Her blood samples smelled like ammonia and had floating particles in it. Most of the people who worked on her got sick themselves. The Glico-Marinaga incident, also known as the monster with 21 faces case. The Oakville blobs. Gelatinous blobs fell from the sky in Oakville, WA in the early 90s that made people sick and killed some animals. After testing, it was shown to contain human white blood cells. The insatiable terror. A French man who could not stop eating. He was said to have an incredibly large mouth with stained teeth, and supposedly had a visible vapor rising off of his body. His parents kicked him out as a teenager because he was literally eating them out of house and home. He ate any and everything, including live animals, stones, silverware, anything he could get his hands on. The French military even tried employing him as a courier to smuggle documents by eating them. No doctor was able to find a cause or a cure to his appetite. He was eventually kicked out of the military hospital where they were studying him, after falling under suspicion of eating a 14-month-old child that went missing from the same hospital. A reasonable suspicion, since they caught him trying to eat dead bodies in the morgue on several occasions. Oh good, it's 1:40 AM, I better read this thread. FML. Well, one time, in my living room with 2 couches, I fell asleep on one couch and woke up on the other couch. How did I get there? The Hessdalen lights. Numerous sightings of the lights but no explanation yet as far I know. The biggest mystery is how long it will take for a BuzzFeed-esque clickbait peddler to take the top responses and compile them into a list you won't believe. A lesser, related mystery is how anyone still reads those articles, which have degenerated to clicking to a new page to see the next paragraph of content. Trying to make a list of 10 items taken from AskReddit into 30 ad impressions per person isn't a strategy. It is a cry of desperation. Who put the command module on Apollo 10? This is a full transcript in case anyone wants to read more. For a mystery very close to the X-Files, you'd need to look at something like the Paul Bennewitz case. He lived and worked close to the Kirtland Air Force Base and intercepted what he believed to be alien communications at what he called the Dulce Base. He very well may have been the target of a government operation where he was fed false information and documents verifying his alien hypothesis by intelligence agents working for the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. He was pushed to the brink and ended up in a mental health hospital. And his story is full of X-Files-esque intrigue, like photographs of landed UFOs he took from the air. He was a private pilot, being stolen from his house. There have been a few books written about it, the best being Project Beta by Greg Bishop. Edit, Kirtland, not Kirkland, though Kirkland would be a great theme park. In a village in Sweden called Rajn, there's a cross-shaped hole in the ground that won't go away. Over many years people tried to dig it out, fill it up, etc. But it comes back. Nothing grows there, and if you plant something in it, it dies. Bodies in a Florida cemetery are all missing. Okay, the leader of the Church of Scientology is David Miscavige. He is married, but his wife hasn't been seen since August 2007. She used to be seen quite a bit by the public when her husband did things on TV. Anyway, here's the page. Hallucinations at sea. So, this has been scientifically explained, but it's intensely creepy, coming from a family of sailors. Both my father and grandfather had similar experiences. My father described an incident where he saw floating coffins covering the entire sea. My grandfather described an incident where a swarm of crows were following the boat, and people riding on motorcycles besides the boat. The lead mask's case is kind of X-Files-esque. Edward Leedskalnin was a 5-foot tall dude who mined and sculpted 1 million kilograms of coral in South Florida into a home and attraction. He said he knew the secret of the Egyptians regarding moving heavy objects. The Mothman incident is always a fun one. Probably a case of misidentified wildlife, hoaxes, and people making it up. Still a fun mystery though. The distinctly Irish mystery of the Great Horse, Shergar. Shergar was a national hero, and the kidnapping involves an alleged government conspiracy, the IRA, and the breeding of a potential horse master race. The Hoia forests in Romania. More than visitors to the forest often report intense feelings of anxiety and the feeling of being constantly watched. Moreover, the local vegetation is somehow bizarre in appearance, like something out of a make-believe story, with strangely shaped trees and unexplained charring on tree stumps and branches. More than the forest was named after a shepherd that disappeared in the area with a flock of 200 sheep. Most people who live near the forest are afraid to enter it due to the stories and legends that have been handed down. They believe that those who visit the site will never return back home. Many of the locals who have been brave enough to venture into the forest complained of physical harm, including rashes, nausea, vomiting, migraines, burns, scratches, anxiety, and other unusual sensations. I read one blog where they guess that the presence of copper mines nearby may mean there are heavy metals down below, accounting for electromagnetic activity and other explainable causes for the weirdness. The Mary Celeste was an American merchant brigantine that was found adrift and deserted in the Atlantic Ocean, off the Azores Islands, Portugal, on the 4th of December, 1872, by the Canadian brigantine Dei Gratia. She was in a disheveled but seaworthy condition, under partial sail, with no one on board, and her lifeboat missing. The last log entry was dated 10 days earlier. She had left New York City for Genoa on the 7th of November, and on discovery was still amply provisioned. Her cargo of denatured alcohol was intact, and the captain's and crew's personal belongings were undisturbed. None of those who had been on board, a sub captain and his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and the crew of 7 also, were ever seen or heard from again. The Battle of Los Angeles. Military guns and spotlights just shot up into the sky for minutes and then it was over. No one has a clue what they were shooting at. It was over LA and no can give any reasonable account as to what happened. The military said it was a weather balloon. Most people say bullet. Wikipedia needs to start auto-redirecting mobile links to the normal website for desktop users. There was an anthropologist in Iceland that disappeared for 7 years. She was found naked in a cave claiming she was kidnapped by elves. Anyone else remember hearing about this? La Mancha Negra. Black slick that keeps expanding with no hard reason and no hard evidence of what it is. Radio astronomer here. A lot of people have by now heard about the wow signal, particularly if you hang out a lot on Reddit. But there are many other strange signals we've heard from the sky we can't explain. One cool example is The Great Galactic Burper, in short. Back in 1998, radio astronomers pointed towards the galactic center heard 5 loud bursts of radiation that were 10 minutes long or so, with 77 minutes separating the blasts. It was really weird. No one knows what caused it, and no one has ever heard this or a similar burst ever again. Pretty crazy stuff. Miracle of the Sun. Thousands of people in Fatima, Portugal on the 13th of October, 1917. After a period of rain, the dark clouds broke, revealing the sun as an opaque spinning disk in the sky. Very neat to read about. Do not know if this was on X-Files, as I've not seen every episode. Skinwalker Ranch is a ranch in northeast Utah where in the 90s the owners reported weird phenomena like giant wolf-like creatures attacking their cattle and taking multiple rifle shots without flinching, then apparently vanishing into thin air. Floating orbs of light, Bigfoot-like creatures, cattle mutilations, etc. Team of scientists from the National Institute for Discovery Science, including Colm Kelleher, who wrote a book about the occurrences, camped out on the ranch and reportedly witnessed much of the same, including what appeared to be windows opening into other worlds and a creature climbing through, poltergeist-like, trickster activity, such as a surveillance camera being pulled down and gaffer tape being meticulously unwrapped from the cables, all while an adjacent camera picked up absolutely nothing. The ranch is on land infamous among the local native tribe as being haunted by skinwalkers, supposedly powerful shape-shifting sorcerers, and has a long history of weird happenings going back decades at least. The team of scientists, though they all experienced a lot of weirded, were never able to gather any robust data to report back to NIDS. They got the feeling whatever they were observing knew it was being observed and did not want to be discovered. The book by Kelleher is Hunt for the Skinwalkers. Science confronts the unexplained at a remote ranch in Utah. It's a damned fascinating read. I know it's common, but Roswell, man. Why was the first report that it was a flying saucer, if it was just a special weather balloon? Why was there such a huge military presence over a large area? Why were so many people threatened to shut up about anything they saw? Why have many grandchildren come out about what their parents revealed to them either later in life or their deathbed that they saw non-human beings in the wreckage? Edit. Oops. Mobile autocorrect. Not cancer balloons. The celestial phenomenon happening over Nuremberg in 1561. It happened randomly in Nuremberg's sky and it appeared as if it was a type of aerial battle with spheres, cylinders, and at the end of the spectacle, a black triangular object fell from the sky and a crash was heard from outside the city. This still does not have an official explanation. UFO conspiracy theorists everywhere, rejoice. One of my favorites is the black triangle UFO, seen over Belgium in the late 80s and early 90s. A famous pic. The Belgian military scrambled F-16s to intercept it, but it was captured on the radar jumping from something like 10,000 feet to 25,000 feet in a single radar blip. It was seen from the ground while being captured on radar. It's a very strong case. Speculation is that it was an advanced military project, but it seems ballsy to test it in public. The Hinterkaifeck murders. More than a few days prior to the crime, farmer Andreas Gruber told neighbors about discovering footprints in the snow leading from the edge of the forest to the farm, but none leading back. He also spoke about hearing footsteps in the attic and finding an unfamiliar newspaper on the farm. Furthermore, the house keys went missing several days before the murders. None of this was reported to the police prior to the attack. More than 6 months earlier, the previous maid had left the farm, claiming that it was haunted. The new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived on the farm on the day of the attack and was killed hours later. More than exactly what happened on that Friday evening cannot be said for certain. It is believed that the older couple, as well as their daughter Victoria, and her daughter, Consilia, were all lured into the barn one by one, where they were killed. The perpetrator, then went into the house where they killed Two-year-old Joseph, who was sleeping in his cot in his mother's bedroom, as well as the maid, Maria Baumgartner, in her bedchamber. Where does the devil's kettle lead to? When I was a kid, like 2ish, I had this dream of a man I called Big Daddy because he looked like a large version of my dad. In the dream, he lifted me up over his head, held me there for what seemed like a few seconds, and dropped me. I recall the dream vividly but not the aftermath, which my parents filled me in on. They heard a super loud thud come from my room, so they ran in and found me several feet away from my bed and both my ears were bleeding. My bed was a car bed that was only about a foot off the ground and it had walls on the side to prevent falling out of it. There was no way falling out of my bed would have made that loud of a noise, let alone the likelihood of me falling out of it to begin with. I'm pretty sure I was abducted. After that day, I had extremely vivid nightmares about black panthers. Not sure why that creature, watching me from outside my window or in the house sometimes. They happened a few times per month and completely stopped when we moved. I remember those dreams more than any other dreams I've ever had in my life. I tell this story all the time as my campfire ghost story, but I've always been tempted to get hypnotic regression therapy to see if I could look past the disguises of whatever it was that was in my dreams to see what was really happening. My favorite is the hum, an ambient sound like an idling diesel engine in the distance, heard in several locations around the world, Taos, NM being one, but no one knows what causes it or where it comes from. There's one I don't hear often about, and yet it's happened right in the middle of downtown of a major Canadian city. There isn't too many videos of it because it happened before people massively had cell phones, but yeah, Montreal mothership, this thing was above downtown. Seen by reporters and cops in the RCMP along with NASA even being called. It was massive and described as a mothership. Stayed up there for 3 hours and the military and airports had no ducking idea what was going on. It then moved east across half the city and caused a power failure. There isn't much about it online as again. This happened in 1990, but yeah, I'm bringing this up as I've lived there for a while, so it's one I heard a lot of talk about, but I think it's pretty weird. The Russian cauldrons. YouTube video. The Taman Shud case. A man washed up on Australia shores who is completely, and to this day, unidentified. Cause of death unknown. And he was carrying a booklet with him that had a cryptid message that to this day is still without meaning. Suitcase believed to be his was also discovered, with odd objects inside that seemed to make no sense to this man's apparent possession of them. Some of the items being red felt slippers, a stenciling brush for marking ship cargo, and a pair of trousers with sand in the cuffs, along with makeshift weapons. A mysterious case from South Korea that had never been solved called the Frog Boys, about a group of boys, 5, gone missing without their corpse remaining, nor any evidence found for about 20 years. Even soon after a massive police search in the whole area foot by foot, nothing was found. However, 20 years later, their remaining have been spotted and discovered just right near their home area, which have already been searched for thoroughly. During this period, there were multiple theories and conspiracies. One professor also personally tried playing detective and accused one of the parents for being the offender with some logical contents and accusations. The Monkey Man would have made a great episode. Summary from Wikipedia. In May 2001, reports began to circulate in the Indian capital New Delhi of a strange monkey-like creature that was appearing at night and attacking people. Eyewitness accounts were often inconsistent, but tended to describe the creature as about 4 feet, 120 cm, tall, covered in thick black hair, with a metal helmet, metal claws, glowing red eyes and 3 buttons on its chest. Others, however, described the Monkey Man as having a more vulpine snout, and being up to 8 feet tall and muscular. It would leap from building to building like a parkour enthusiast. Still others have described it as a bandaged figure or as a helmeted thing. Theories on the nature of the Monkey Man ranged from an avatar of the Hindu god Hanuman to an Indian version of Bigfoot. Many people reported being scratched, and 2, by some reports, 3, people even died when they leapt from the tops of buildings or fell down stairwells in a panic caused by what they thought was the attacker. At one point, exasperated police even issued artists' impression drawings in an attempt to catch the creature. The entire incident has been described as an example of mass hysteria. I'm really late, but while looking in one of the rabbit holes in this thread, I came upon this video about a song that doesn't exist. It made it pretty high in the leaderboards, but no one can find it. The death of Elizabeth Short. better known as the Black Dahlia case. After missing for a week, her body was found in Los Angeles, sliced into half, with intestines stuffed under her buttocks, and body appeared to be posed by whoever who dumped her. A Glasgow smile was also carved into her face, extending from the edges of her mouth up to her cheeks. After 18 years of teaching junior high school history, my dad became a trucker, long haul type. He touched the contiguous 48 states. One time he picked up a load from the defunct Hanford nuclear facility to take to Nevada or Arizona. Unlike all the other loads he hauled, this time he had a 2 black SUV escort. Has to stop at a weigh station. We'll handle this, sir. Has to pull over to check the load. We'll handle this, sir. Dad never found out what he hauled that time. Always struck me as odd, creepy government shenanigans. This young boy told his mother that he used to be somebody else, that he used to be a Hollywood agent in its golden age and was married several times. He even listed his birth year correctly, even though it was listed incorrectly on his birth certificate, along with dozens of details that he couldn't possibly know. This has been my favorite thread of the year so far. I'm going on 7 hours now with all the reading and watching and cross-referencing and finding new stuff once I get there. Reddit is the best. It's gold, Jerry. Gold. The spontaneous fires of Canito di Caronia in Sicily. Basically, things just started catching fire in this town and nobody could figure out why. It seems to stop for a while, but then will start again. Seems to always be electrical appliances. But the city shut down power and they kept happening. Scientists are sure it's because of static electricity, but nobody knows why it happened so frequently in one place. Pretty cool mystery. What's the name of that V something book with the language never seen before or since that has the drawings of flowers? This has been confirmed to exist, but no one knows what it is. Current theory is a bluefin whale hybrid, since the sound is so similar to their songs, only ridiculously high in pitch. I'm probably late to the party, but this is an ongoing case in the UK right now. Some old guy traveled miles away from home to die miles up a mountain by a reservoir. He had no ID on him, and recent tests have found his blood was traced with an illegal rat poison not accessible in the UK. He has a plate in his leg from Pakistan, but doesn't appear to be of Pakistani descent. He was also dressed really smartly and asked locals for directions to the mountain in bad weather. More recently, a theory has come to light suggesting he might be some way involved with a plane crash that happened on the side of the mountain in 1946. Hence why that particular location and so far from home. Nobody has come forward to say he is missing either, which adds more light to the theory that perhaps he lost someone in the accident and wanted his final resting place to be where theirs was. Either way, it has the UK puzzled.